Hare Krishna. I'm deeply grateful to all the devotees driving far from places like Mountain House and Fremont and so many other places. So thank you so much for coming from San Jose and nearby areas too. So I'm deeply grateful that you came. So we'll sing the bhajan and then we can start. Thank you. So Prabhu, if you can read the translation, maybe you can read two and you can read two.
The lotus feet of Sri Rupa Manjari are my treasure, my devotional service and my object of worship. They give my life meaning and they are the life of my life. They are the perfection of rasa and they are perfection worthy of attainment. They are the very law of the Vedic scriptures for me. They are the meaning of all my fasts and penances and my silent uttering
Of the mantras.
They are the basis of religion and activities.
Thank you.
By the purifying process of favorable devotional service, one will attain perfection and with these two eyes be able to see. His transcendental form is shining like moonlight in my heart, and my heart therefore shines and reciprocates. In other words, the ordinary moon lights up the night and its shine illuminates other objects, but the moon of the effulgence of the form of Sri Rupa Manjari shines into the heart and makes the heart also shine back to the spiritual sky. This moon shines not only in the night time but day and night. Your absence from my vision is like a dose of strong poison, and I will suffer till the end of my life. Narottam Das Thakur says, please give me your mercy and the shade of your lotus feet.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Shei Mora Sampada Shei Mora Bhajan Pujana Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Shei Mora Sampada Shei Mora Bhajan Pujana Shei Mora Pranadhana Shei Mora Abharana Shei Mora Jiva Nirjivana Shei Mora Pranadhana Shei Mora Abharana Shei Mora Jiva Nirjivana Shei Mora Rasa Nidhi Shei Mora Bancha Siddhi Shei Mora Vedera Dharama সেই ব্রত সেই তপ সেই মোর মন্ত্র জপ সেই মোর ধর্ম করামা। অনুকূল হবে বিধি সেই পদে হইবে সিদ্ধি নিরাখিব এ দুই নয়নে। সেই রূপ মাধুরী রসি পাণা কুবলয় শশী প্রফুল্লিত হবে নিশিদিনে। তুয়া আদর্শন আহি গারালে জরল দেহি চিরদিন তাপিত জীবনা। হাহা রূপ কর দয়া দেহ মরে পদ ছায়া নরতম লইল শরণ। হাহা রূপ কর দয়া দেহ মারে পদ ছায়া নরতম লইল শরণ। হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে। হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে। হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে। হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে। জয় প্রভুপদা জয় প্রভুপদা প্রভুপদা জয় প্রভুপদা। জয় গুরুদেবা জয় গুরুদেবা গুরুদেবা জয় গুরুদেবা। श्रील रूप गोस्वामी की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Hare Krishna. So today we'll be doing, or we'll be trying to cover the chapters 5th, 6th and 7th. We have to do 4 also. Let's do 4 also. All right. I thought we did the 4th, but yeah, we did the 4th because the 4th were a list of verses that Srila Rupa Goswami presents from Srimad Bhagavatam, quoting various sources about how liberation is insignificant. And oftentimes the question is asked, what if a devotee has a genuine desire for liberation? Isn't it that something worthwhile? And why are we so much discouraging liberation per se? And sometimes devotees will be a little discouraged that, oh, it's pure devotional service or nothing. What I have this desire for not pure devotional service. To that extent that we engage in pure devotional service, we come to the stage that liberation is not something that that is not that important. But having said that, one has to be honest in front of Krishna. If our desire is strongly liberation, which we shouldn't aspire for, but anyway that's there in my heart, then you should express it to Krishna. Whatever he wants to do, he can do it. Because it is there in Srimad Bhagavatam that the devotees, they have been honest with Krishna. Because there is no way you can cheat Krishna. You can fool Krishna. You can hope to assume that Krishna might not know your intentions or what is there in the core of your heart. He's been there with you since time immemorial. I might know about this body and the color of my body and the gender of my body and so on and so forth for this one lifetime. But Krishna has been sitting in your heart since time immemorial. He knows what all we have done in the past and what all our intentions were. So there is no point in fooling Krishna. We better be honest with what we have. Having said that, when we practice sadhana bhakti and when we hear and chant about Krishna, the glories, the sweetness, and just the personality of the Lord is so attractive that you come to the point that I don't need anything. It's a natural stage of coming to reject liberation. So if somebody comes to you and says that, I want moksha, and which is a pretty strong goal for many of the people who are outside, say for example, Krishna consciousness, or who might not, even within Krishna consciousness, they might be still holding that goal in their heart, that this is the last lifetime. Often we hear in lectures, do your work and then get out of this life, and this is your last life, otherwise you'll come back as an animal. While that scary thought might be there, eventually we come to the point that it really doesn't matter. If I have to come back as an animal, so be it. Kita janma ho yatathu adas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even if I am born as an insect, let me be a servant of yours. So it's a natural stage of realization of how I do not want liberation. So if somebody outside ISKCON comes and says that I want liberation, one should not put off that person saying that, oh, you are so foolish, you have no idea what is beyond liberation. So it's that's the point I just wanted to add, because many devotees are caught up, especially when you are new. I've been suffering in this world, and my body has been giving me so much trouble. So what's really wrong in asking liberation from Krishna? And then it's okay if you have that inclination. By all stretch of imagination, you should ask Krishna. But just wanted to add that point. As much as you shouldn't frown on somebody who says, I want money, or I want something. Because Kardama, as it's mentioned in Bhagavatam, he pleased Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu gave him darshan, which is rarely achieved. Rarely achieved. And he said, what do you want? I want a wife. I shouldn't be asking you all this, but this is what is there in my heart. And Lord Vishnu didn't say, Hey Bhagavan, or Hey myself, because he is Bhagavan. Everybody gets a wife. Animals also get their spouses and their partners. You called me all the way from Vaikuntha so that you asked for a wife? What's wrong with you? Lord Vishnu didn't say that. He said, yes, I know your desire. 3rd day from now, you will have Swayambhuva Manu's daughter as your wife. So in any case, just wanted to add that, because as we move into nectar of devotion, the concepts and the tenets may seem to be really like way beyond what our practical thing is, and we should never be discouraged, thinking that this is too much, this is too hi-fi. I cannot have this. Please understand, it is too hi-fi, but by mercy of Mahaprabhu, it's accessible. And we have to have some definite goals and aspirations for pure devotional service, but then we also need to be aware of my own situation in this world and act accordingly also. Is that helpful? Yeah. So, all right. So, chapter 5, the purity of devotional service. Can Prabhuji, you can start from this side. You can read the first paragraph, and then you can give to your good wife, and in that way it can go on. So, yes.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, last time we ended at chapter 4 and we were in rush of ending the class in time. So there were a couple of questions I asked and you said we'll be starting the next class with those things.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Please.
Sorry if I'm interrupting, but
No. You didn't.
Thought
Actually, I should be extremely thankful to you for bringing that up. So, thank you. Few questions. Online, if anybody is online who had questions, they can send it to WhatsApp. And I think Shraddha can take a look, or somebody also can take a look at the messages on WhatsApp. And let me know in case there are any questions online. Actually, on that point, now that you brought up, Venudhari Prabhu, let's go to the 4th chapter and the last paragraph. If there are any questions, I'll take them first. One more paragraph before that, if you please. Thank you. Okay, Prabhuji, you read that particular paragraph. This is a point that I missed. I wanted to add that.
Out of many kind of devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the one who is attracted to the original form of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan is considered to be the foremost first-class devotee. Such a devotee is never attracted by the opulences of Vaikuntha or even of Dwaraka, the royal city where Krishna ruled. The conclusion of Sri Rupa Goswami is that the devotees who are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokula or
Vrindavan. So it's the book, I think they just cut off. It is, or Vrindavana are the topmost devotees. So go to the next paragraph. Please read the next paragraph. And then
a devotee who is attached to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to redirect his devotion to other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramachandra, knew that there is no difference between Lord Ramachandra and Lord Narayana, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramachandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many forms of the Lord, but Krishna is still the original form. Though all of the devotees of the different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is said that those who are devotees of Lord Krishna are the topmost in the list of all devotees.
Confused enough? So, while it is mentioned that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and those who are devotees of the Lord, especially of the pastimes in Vrindavan, whoever are participating and devotees of the Lord in Vrindavan are considered topmost, nonetheless, there are multifarious forms of the Lord and they are not different from Krishna. And those devotees who have particular affinity for the Lord, to serve the Lord in that form, nevertheless are happy in that form. There is an apparent contradiction here, and that can be resolved by the fact that each devotee who is attracted to a particular form of the Lord, his eternal or her eternal swarup or her eternal form is to serve that particular form of the Lord. And they are satisfied in serving that, and they don't want anything more than that. So it's very, very vividly described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where Lord Hanuman is approached by Prahlad saying that you are the topmost devotee, or Narada, he is approached by Narada saying you are the topmost devotee, but he says, no, I am not the topmost devotee, the Pandavas are the topmost devotees because they are attracted to Krishna. Hanumanji has an inkling that Krishna is, so he says Pandavas are better devotees than me. See, people might say, how is it an apple to apple comparison? Hanumanji is the devotee of Lord Krishna? Okay, thank you. I thought I was the only one falling asleep here. So, and the Pandavas are devotees of Krishna. But Lord Hanumanji says, Pandavas are better devotees than me. He doesn't discriminate, how is it? Lord Ramchandra's best devotee? Me. Lord Krishna's best devotee? Somebody else. He doesn't discriminate that. He says, they are better than me. But the Lord is the same. Yet the vision of the devotee is such that they do not wish to serve any other Lord other than their Ishtadev. Is that clear? Krishna, Rama, Vishnu, they are all the same personality of Godhead. There is no difference between them. Lord Narsimha, Lord Vamana, they are all the same personality. It's the same truth. There is only one truth. It's not many truths. But it is displayed in many ways and many forms for the sake of attracting the heart of their devotees. And the devotee in turn is satisfied by that particular form of the Lord. But it is said that the topmost devotees of Krishna are the Vrindavan, and amongst them Radharani and the gopis are the best, because they have the foremost attraction to Krishna. That is done in a very objective and impartial way, not out of any sentimental way or putting down. If my heart is attracted to a form other than Lord Krishna, that is still okay, because that might be my original swarup. Then having said that, some devotee question, if that is the case, why am I worshipping Krishna and Radha? I may be a devotee of Lord Ram. I should be worshipping somebody else. Even though you worship Lord Krishna, as you advance in devotional service, the Lord manifests Himself according to the form which is suitable to your original swarup. The same Lord Krishna will manifest in a different way. Is that helpful? I'll give a simple example. When Krishna was performing rasa dance with the gopis, in the middle of the beautiful rasa dance, Krishna left them. And the gopis started searching every single forest. They started asking every creeper, every tree, deer, peacocks. They started asking, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And Krishna, he wanted to play the trick on them. What did he do? He converted himself into Lord Narayan, and he was standing. And then the gopis came and they saw Lord Narayan, four-handed form, right in the forest of Vrindavan. He was standing. And the gopis, they offered their obeisances to Lord Narayan. And they said, okay, we found Narayan, forget Krishna. They asked Narayanji, where is Krishna? Where did you see Krishna? They were asking the same question to all the creepers and the deer and everybody. They are asking the same question to Lord Narayan, where is Krishna? And then Lord Narayan, he gives, Krishna went somewhere else. But when Radharani came asking, and Lord Narayan, he couldn't hold his form as Lord Narayan. Seeing the beauty and the attraction of Radharani, he became Krishna. The gopis of Vrindavan, their heart and soul was given to Krishna, and they couldn't be attracted to any other form apart from Krishna. So this is the esoteric truth. When we worship that the same Lord, Krishna, he reveals himself according to the original identity of the devotee. So there is no harm. In case you feel conflicted, everybody worships Radha and Krishna, but I am attracted to Nrsimhadev. Probably, you know what, I am not a high-class devotee. Don't get that feeling, please. You never know how Krishna is going to reveal himself. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bachamyaham mama vartmano vartante manusya partha sarvasha. Krishna says, I reveal accordingly. It's not that Krishna is standard issue. No changes. That is, Krishna is infinitely. Is that clear? That's one point I wanted to clarify from the previous chapter. Otherwise, people often get confused with this. Well, it's, you know, sometimes people say, I am devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev, but in Nectar of Devotion it's written that only the first class devotees are devotees of Krishna. I shouldn't tell to my friends, otherwise they'll think I'm a low class devotee. Please don't have that feeling. You remember in the Nectar of Devotion, in the pure devotional service description, Anyavilashita shunyam jnana karmat dhanavritam anukulyena. So the word Krishna we describe intently. What do you mean favorable only to Krishna? What about Lord Ram? What about Nrsimhadev? What about Vaman? What about Matsya, Kurma, so on and so forth? And we discussed that Krishna includes all these things. And then when Krishna includes all these things, and when you serve Krishna, Krishna will reveal according to you, according to where your interest lies. Make sense? Yes, Shraddha. Please.
I actually had the same question too. Question chapter 4, page 43, last paragraph. How come Prahlad Maharaj from Satyayug cited example of Hanumanji since Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga? This is from Harshal Prabhu.
Yeah, so that is, the source of that book is there, but there is no mention why it happened. All these exalted souls, they are eternally liberated souls, and it's not that the first time that they could see that. Because I'll give you a simple example. Arjuna and Krishna are described in Bhagavatam as incarnations of Naranarayan. Let's not get into that, the nitty-gritties, otherwise we'll end up next 2 hours with discussing that. But just for the sake of the class and time, let's accept that. Because people go always convoluted. Oh, what do you mean like this? Krishna is the original source of all. Okay, let's not get into there for now. So, so Arjuna as Nara and Krishna as Narayan were eternally present in the past, present and future. When the cycles happen, one of the explanation is that Prahlad Maharaj already witnessed it, and then he's already telling it. But having said that, I looked up, there is no more information than that. Srila Rupa Goswami quotes it from a particular Shastra where Prahlad Maharaj mentions this. Either he was told by someone, it could be that something happened in the past doesn't mean that there was a chronological event to it. Maybe Narada Muni told Prahlad. So it could be vice versa also. Because Hanumanji is still living, Prahlad is still living. So at one point they could have. But in any case, the answer is inconclusive. Let me put it that way. There is no authorized quote where I can give an exact Shastra by the Acharya. So we'll leave it at that. Be happy. In the morning in the Bhakti Vaibhava class, we had to study the 5th canto and the Bhumandala. Coming from that particular class. Anyways. Yes, Prabhuji and then Prabhuji. Yeah.
Prabhu, I have a question. There is a term mentioned, practical devotional service.
Okay.
Can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. If you give me your patience for the 6th chapter, then we get into the practicalities. Sure. There are 64 practical ways that's mentioned in the... Okay.
No, but why Prabhupada has mentioned practical and not pure devotional service?
Where? In which?
I think chapter 2.
Chapter 2?
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yes, Prabhu. Chapter 2, page 20. So practice means employing both the mind and the senses in practical devotional service.
Oh, practical is used for the sense that my senses need to be involved.
That is pure devotional service also, to body, mind and senses.
But the point is, in the initial, so pure devotional service means that love of Godhead is already there. In fact, when you are in the path of pure devotional service, you might not do practical devotional service. Let me explain. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he uttered the name of Krishna, let me track back. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born in the family of Brahmins, a Brahmana family, and then he got Shaligram Shilas. He went to Gaya, he met Ishvara Puri, and his heart transformed in the love of Godhead. He came back to Navadvip, completely a transformed personality, and he was day and night profusely crying in love of Godhead. Then he had Shaligram Shilas at home. That Mahaprabhu, he was to worship. If you have Shaligrams at home, you worship every day. So one day Mahaprabhu, he came, he bought the Shaligrams, he sat to worship them. But remembering Krishna, seeing those Shaligrams, his heart became overflowing with love of Godhead, and tears started profusely coming through his eyes and drenching his whole clothes in no time. And then he looked at his state, my clothes are wet. And he gets up again, he goes to the river, takes bath, and then puts on new fresh pair of clothes, and he comes back. And then he sits to worship Shaligram. It's the same story. And then he goes to Srivas and he tells to Srivas Thakur, I'm so unfortunate that I cannot worship these Shaligrams. You please take these and worship. So when you are in the stage of pure love of Godhead, practicality may be somewhat questionable. Because your body is steeped, your whole consciousness is steeped with Krishna. It's a spontaneous attraction. So practical is used. So pure devotional service can be Vaidhi sadhana or Raganuga or Prema. So they are all pure devotional service, but on the Vaidhi level, then it becomes a little more practical rather than spontaneous. You don't, that's why we have 16 rounds. Spontaneous means that one day I get up, I chant 1 round. The next day I chant 248. The third day 0. Next day 3. But I'm already seeped in love of God, so I don't need to calculate the numbers. But having said that, the Goswamis, Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi, by their example, they still showed that one should not give up the practice of sadhana, even though one may be really on a very elevated state. So, is that helpful? Okay, thank you. Yes, you had a question, and then someone else. Then, Prabhuji in the back. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Prabhuji, when it says in 7.19 of Bhagavad Gita, after many lifetimes, a Jnani surrenders to Krishna knowing that Vasudeva is everything. Is that the Madhyam Adhikari platform, or is that still a Kanishta Adhikari platform?
Depends, honestly speaking. I'll tell you why. If you come to the stage that you firmly realize that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and surrender unto Him is the only recourse or the best recourse of action, then you are technically on Madhyama because your faith has become so strong. But on the stage of Gyan, to come to that stage, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, the Jnanis might have had some tinge of bhakti in the process of their Gyan performances that qualifies them as Kanishta Adhikari. So, because any form of yoga is not devoid of bhakti. It is just bhakti component is very less. In the pure devotional service, the process is 100% pure bhakti. But in the Jnana Mishra Bhakti, bhakti is 10%, 12%, 20%, not more than that. But Jnana is the overriding thing. That's why Anyavilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Anavritam. It shouldn't be covered by these motives. But Jnana and Karma and Dhyana depend on bhakti for their success. So when you are in the process of jnana, you automatically do some bhakti which qualifies you on the kanishta stage. But when you come to the stage, oh my God, what am I wasting my time trying to search for Brahman when that supreme Brahman is right here and the surrender unto him is the best goal? Then you actually come to the madhyama because your scriptural studies have borne fruit. And you have really kind of come to that stage by either your own endeavors or by the mercy of a pure devotee or by the mercy of Krishna. You came to that stage. And then that is where the madhyama stage is coming. Yes, this is what it is. Nothing more to that. Helpful? Okay. The reason is, if you jump directly to bhakti, initially you could be a kanishta, and your faith in the scriptures and Krishna is very minimal, and it can be changed. Rupa Goswami says that if those who are in the beginning stages, their faith is changed by strong arguments. If somebody comes and says Krishna is the Supreme Lord and he's in a very beginning stage, people can throw arguments. Where is it written Krishna is God? How can Krishna be so limited and he can be God when my Brahman is all pervading and all powerful and supremely light? That is God. This is not God. How can he be like 200? See, the thing is that Kanishta, oh yeah, you're right. Where is it there? Brahman by numbers unlimited is better than limited. Logic, yes or yes? By logic, yes. By scriptures, no. Because that Supreme Lord who's standing there with two-handed form, even Brahma is bewildered. The master of all knowledge is bewildered. How can he be the absolute truth and the source of all knowledge? Then once he comes from the Brahma Vayam Leela, oh yes, you are the original Narayana. So you see, it depends. So Jnanis, at least, the problem with Jnanis is to come to bhakti, it's very hard. But once they come, they become really strong because the jnana gives them real impetus to start. So, is that helpful? Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhu, I'm going back to one of the questions that was, I think, asked. So, if someone is more attached to Lord Narayan form, now in Bhagavatam, all the different pastimes, there are pastimes of Narayan there also, but most of them are like, Krishna or maybe Nrsingadev, the other pastimes. So if someone is attached to that form, how, in this path, in this Gaudiya Vaishnava path, how he can increase that love towards that Lord Narayan form?
Oh, okay. So your question is, I'm a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but I'm somehow or other attracted to Lord Narayan. Now, how can I increase my faith in Lord Narayan? Or what is the process? Well, there are no practical cases that I can think of right now, having either in Bhagavatam or other places. But the story of four Kumaras is a good indication. They were on the highest stage of Dhyan Yoga, and they smelled the tulsi that was on the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and they became attracted, and they rushed towards seeing that Lord. So that is one example of how the personal features of the Lord can carry away the mind of an aspiring devotee. On the Gaudiya Vaishnava thing, I have not so much idea. Murari Gupta is Lord Ram. So I was referring more to Narayan. Narayan is... one example I can think of is Venkata Bhatta, the father of Gopal Bhatta. Though he might have... did he later get converted to Gaudiya Vaishnavism? But I think he stayed in his same place as Srirangam. Though he was told by Mahaprabhu, and if Mahaprabhu stays in your house, and then you cannot but yourself not call, at least to not be touched by Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But still he was having the same faith in Lord Narayan. And Mahaprabhu was not... he was playfully having arguments with them. Oh, you're worshipping Lakshmi, but Lakshmi is trying her best to get into rasa dance, and somehow she couldn't get into it. Why? So there was thing, but he never deviated from that path. And Mahaprabhu appreciated, and as Venudari Prabhu says, he tested Murari Gupta, who was none other than Hanuman. Hey, why are you worshipping? Why are you not worshipping Krishna? Why are you worshipping Ram? And Murari Gupta says, I cannot but worship Lord Ram. And he took a knife ready to kill himself because he couldn't follow. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy. He said, yeah, I was just testing you and you passed it. So, is that helpful? Yes. Yes.
But when the same person, when he's attracted to and his pastime, when he gives, the Vatsalya or maybe Sakhya ras of Krishna, he gets he finds pleasure there basically. So how do you? I mean, although he knows, I mean, for him, the Lord Narayan, the four-handed form is very like gorgeous and majestic. Whenever he tries to focus, he's attached to that. But then he also likes when he comes as Krishna and he does all naughty things, in the Vatsalya ras and with his friends. So how do we? I mean, is that okay or is that? I mean.
So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction to Nectar of Devotion, in the introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, where he writes during the biography of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that there are 5 types of mellows or taste to serve Krishna, but each devotee who is on a particular mellow thinks that is the best. So I'm so absorbed in serving Krishna or my Ishtadev in a particular capacity that is the soul's ultimate happiness to be in that position. I'll give an example. Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he went through different places. He went through Brahmaloka, he went to Ayodhya, he went to Vaikunta, but his heart was somehow not able to, completely be satisfied till he reached Golok Vrindavan. That was his natural position. Right? And your heart knows that this is it. I can't fathom or I don't need to. I'm so supremely happy. I don't need to worry about any other rasa. Otherwise, instead of devotees saying, he is better than me, it will be the other way around, like in the material world, fighting for promotion. No, I am better. I'm just a servant here. I should be at least a friend of the Lord. Oh, I am the friend, but I should be above the Lord, right? No, Vatsalya ras, I should get that promotion, right? Then from Vatsalya ras, no, actually it doesn't work like that. This is, every ras is so perfect in the heart of the devotee, you don't choose. And it's mentioned by Hanuman. He says, that's it. Lord Ram is my master. I am his eternal servant. I need to know nothing more beyond that. So I am happy. Is that helpful? Yeah. Otherwise, there will be corporate spiritual affairs. Department of HR. Thank you. No, was that Department of Spiritual Resources or whatever. Anyway, is that helpful? Yeah. If it is like this here, and if it's like that in spiritual world, then let's not even aspire. Why waste time? No, it's different. And we didn't even start our 5th chapter yet. That's okay. I'm happy. So we'll read. So there are 2 or 3 points in the 5th chapter. I would rather cover the basics of it. The purity of devotional service, or the devotional service, is so pure that there is no need for any background checks. As in, oh, you're a Brahmana, okay, check. Then only you are eligible. Oh, you're not, then sorry, it doesn't work. So, irrespective of the background, pure devotion service is so strong that it can purify anybody. And that is the power of pure devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada, actually he writes that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he broke or he smashed this idea that only those who are born, especially in India it's very prevalent, that if you are born in the family of a Brahmana, then only you are a Brahmana, otherwise you can never be a Brahmana. And he mentions that struggle by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then one point, if you go one chapter below that, one paragraph below that, one more below that, Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions here that every man, when it said man, every person. Okay, let's not get into all those nitty-gritties right now. And it's a proof practical, at least in Krishna. And in ISKCON, you see that women are also eligible to be serving pujaris and be on the altar. So don't make me be politically correct. Every man means every person. Every man has this birthright to accept devotional service and become Krishna conscious. He has given many evidences from scriptures, and he has especially quoted one passage from Padma Puran where the sage Vasishta tells King Dilipa, "My dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service, just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magh, December and January." So the idea that you have to have certain background is not mentioned here. Then the other nice point is in a few paragraphs down, please. Yeah. Sri Rupa Goswami also says that if one is regularly discharging devotional service, there will be no question of fall down. But even if circumstantially there is some fall down, the Vaishnava need have nothing to do with prayaschitta or the ritualistic ceremony for purification. If someone falls down from the principles of devotional service, he need not take to prayaschitta performances for reformation. He simply has to execute the rules and regulations for discharging devotional service. And this is sufficient for his reinstatement. This is the mystery of Vaishnava cult. So, when you say that devotional service is so pure that background checks and qualities are not needed, which means that even if you perchance fall down from devotional service, then if you keep performing that devotional service, you will be able to make progress. The idea there is that one should never give up, no matter how it's a struggle to chant, or it's so much of stuff going on. My life would have been better without all this stuff, all this chanting and all this devotional service. One should never have that kind of despair and despondency. No matter how hard it is, if we keep up, then one day we kind of make progress for sure. There's no doubt about it. If not, then why waste time? The other thing, in the morning in the Bhakti Vaibhava session, we were reading about the glories of Bharatvarsha, that people who've been born on this earth, this earth it's mentioned is a perfect place for self-realization. Perfect place. Even the demigods in the heaven are saying, I want to be born on this earth. Because this earth, it is said, is perfectly balanced in terms of material happiness and material distress. And the life duration is short. So one can, if one is aware, then one has the facilities to perform devotional service and to get out of this material existence. In heavenly planets, life is so great. Seriously, did you know in some heavenly planets that you can have as much pleasure with the opposite member of your opposite gender, or your wife or husband, for all through your life, and you will only have one child. And the child, as soon as the child is born, he or she will grow up instantaneously and walk off. No changing diapers. No worrying about 401k. You don't get old there. You don't need deodorants or any such means of things. You don't need to worry about car insurance and gas and electric and so on and so forth. Life is so high, the pleasure is so high. The idea is, even though it is high, there is a chance that you won't render devotional service. Even the demigods are saying, look at these people of Bharatvarsha. They are able to render devotional service. I want to be born in the land of on this earth. Bharatvarsha is alternately taken as India and sometimes taken as this entire earth. So please have every single facility to make some spiritual advancement. Even if we can't do it 100%, even if whatever little we do, there is a very great hope that in the next life we can start from where we left. But not to give up, that is the greatest of the failures. It doesn't matter, mind has this trick. I'm not chanting well, we try to improve, don't get me wrong. I'm not supporting that we don't do anything and then be causing, expecting progress. But in spite of our genuine and sincere efforts, there are so many things that are going on, but one should never be discouraged. It's just a matter of time that we get the highest pleasure. Shall I tell you one small story at the risk of falling behind? The Pandavas, they were virtue personified. Yudhishthira Maharaj was so virtuous that he would rather give up his life than to break the principles of virtue. And we hear the story of how they were robbed and cheated off by their kingdom. Right from the word go, they were in a disadvantageous position. Their father Pandu passed away when he was very young, when they were very young. And Nakul and Sahadev, they lost their mother too, their birth mother, and they were raised by Kunti. But Kunti was so affectionate that she treated as her own sons and she made no distinction. In fact, it is mentioned in the Mahabharata that Pandu had this curse that if he would contact any of his wives for pleasure, then he would die. And he got the curse because he killed a sage when he was trying to have pleasure with his wife. How did that happen? The sage and his wife were in the form of a deer, mating. The reason being, the sage didn't have a house, an ashram. And the wife also, she was there with the sage. And since they didn't have an ashram, it would be very inappropriate in the human form of life to mate. And that's completely against the principles of human civilization. So by his mystic power, he converted himself to a deer and his wife to a deer, and they mated for children. And Pandu, for some reason, he thought it was an animal, and the Kshatriyas in those days would hunt the animals to keep the population in jungle in check, and he struck. And then, to his horror, the deer turned into a sage. And he was terrified. Pandu was literally shivering. And then he ran up to the sage, and the sage name was Kindama. And he says, "Please forgive me, O sage, I didn't mean to kill you, it's just out of mistake it happened." And the sage says, "I forgive you for killing me. Because I was in the body of a deer, you didn't know my true identity, and then you shot that arrow, that fatal arrow that caused my death. But the problem I have is that no matter it's an animal or a human being, to kill when it's mating is the most grievous offense, and that you should have been aware of, which you were not. So I curse you, whenever you contact your wife for pleasure, you'll die." And then Pandu is mortified. This was before he had children, by the way. He's mortified, and then he maintains strict celibacy. And somehow or other, Kunti begets 3 sons, and Madri begets 2 sons. And later, by chance, Madri and Pandu were together. Kunti is taking care of the kids, and somehow he gets attracted, and he dies. And then Kunti says to Madri, look, our husband died. It's only fair that I am the elder wife. I should go with him. You should be staying back and taking care of the children. And Madri says, no. He approached me, and then because of I'm the cause of his death, and besides, I'll be united with him in the higher regions where I can go, and you should stay back and take care of children. And Kunti says, okay, that makes sense. So Madri ascends the funeral pyre along with Pandu, and then Kunti takes care of the 5 sons. And she, after Pandu dies, she was being alone, a widow in the mountains. She comes back to Hastinapur, where right from the beginning, the Pandavas were mistreated. Dhritarashtra wanted to be the king, but because of his blindness, Pandu was installed to be the king. And unfortunately, Yudhishthira was born before Duryodhana. So by birthright, Duryodhana is the next in line to become the king. And Duryodhana was completely envious. And then they tried so many ways to kill the Pandavas. And it didn't work out. The kingdom was divided into half. The barren Indraprastha was given to the Pandavas, and the flourishing Hastinapur was given to Duryodhana, again an injustice. But by Krishna's mercy, that barren land became one of the most flourishing cities, and Yudhishthira became the king of the world by performing Rajasuya sacrifice. Fortunately or unfortunately, Duryodhana was responsible for collecting all the gifts that came from different emperors of the world, and his heart started burning with envy, evaporating with envy, seeing the amount of gold and jewels and skins and ivory and sandalwood that was coming in. The caravans and caravans of these were coming into Hastinapur during the Rajasuya sacrifice, and he was receiving them and keeping them in the treasury. But anyway, and then somehow or other he gets so envious, he says, I have to get this kingdom from Pandavas. And Shakuni, as you know, has this gambling match where they get all the money back, all the kingdom back by unfair means, and the Pandavas are in forest for 12 years. Yudhishthira is an emblem of patience. His wife, she's humiliated. Draupadi is inciting him, please, what's wrong with you? Why are you sitting like an impotent person in the middle of the forest? Look at your brothers. They have weapons and they can defeat even the demigods in heavens. And you are sitting here just like an impotent person, not even taking revenge against the insults that we suffered. And Bhima is a hot-headed person. He said, yes, she's true. What is going wrong with you? You have to give me the order. We can go kill them right now. But Yudhishthira said, Yudhishthira was hurt. He was a sensitive personality. When the gambling match happened, he realized the gravity of the situation when they went to the forest. That this was Draupadi, who was princess, who has never seen a hardship in her life, who was waited upon by hundreds of maid servants, and now she was cooking for her 5 husbands along with the hundreds of Brahmins who were actually accompanying Pandavas in the forest. Did you know the fact that the Brahmins, they said, Yudhishthira, we are going with you in the forest. And Yudhishthira is like, I myself don't know where I will eat or where I will stay. He didn't say like that. He said, please forgive me. Because Yudhishthira, when he was the king, he would be feeding 100,000 Brahmins every single day. Every single day he would be feeding, and he would be giving them gifts. From that position, you are put into a position where you can't feed the Brahmins. He said, please, don't follow me. Be happy in Hastinapur. Duryodhana is a wretch, but he'll take care of Brahmins nicely. So please stay with him. He said, no, forget it. And regarding the food, we'll manage our own food. We eat roots and fruits and we won't bother you, but we want to spend time with you. And besides, you will be in forest all alone. You'll have a lot of time. You will be on vacation. You'll have no internet connection and mobile phones. So we'll help you with, we will give you discourses on spiritual matters and you will really pass your time. Yudhishthira was really willing to do that. And then somehow or other we hear the story of how he prayed to sun god for 3 days and 3 nights without eating or sleeping or drinking any water. And at the end of the 3rd day, the sun god comes and he gives the Akshaya Patra. He gives a big plate. He says, take this. Till Draupadi has eaten, how much ever little you cook and place it on this plate, till every single Brahmana is fed, this plate will give you unlimited supply of food. So, but later, he asks Markandeya Rishi about, don't think that Yudhishthira was happy. He was in this heart, he had this question, this burning question, that he asks, how come those people, my cousins headed by Kauravas, who have no culture, who have no virtuous principles to live by, who didn't adhere to the virtue that we did as Pandavas, they are enjoying life in Hastinapur, but whereas we are suffering here in forest. And then Markandeya Rishi says, this is the nature of material existence. A person who grabs money and enjoys life in this particular, in this lifetime, will have to suffer in the next lifetime. An ascetic who forgoes pleasure in this life will enjoy in the next life. And you want to hear the 3rd category? Because it's really nice for us. With all our headaches as married people, forget the singles who are in the crowd, so 2-3 people I know. If in the marriage, husband and wife perform sacrifice and give charity, they can be happy in this life and in the next life. And a foolish person, an atheistic person who has absolutely no faith in scriptures or righteous living, he is a fool who is neither happy in this life nor in the next life. In fact, that's what Krishna says, Ajnascha ashraddha danascha samsayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samsayatmana. Na ayam, na asti. Now, neither here nor there. What was the point I was trying to make when I tell this story? I lost the train of thought. Why did I bring up this story? Yeah, before that, what was the point I was trying to make?
I started with saying that the devotional service, we need not be despondent or despair, we are not making progress. The main point is we should not give up. That point is
excellent, thank you. So, all through these trials and tribulations, the Pandavas never gave up. Don't think that they didn't have this feeling that I am a devotee and why am I suffering. They had that feeling, but they never lost that implicit faith in Krishna. They never said, why is God doing this to us? We didn't do anything wrong. But at every step, they just said, even in the forest when Krishna came to visit them, he could have said, Krishna, you know what, we are in the forest, why don't you make a forest in Dwarka, 5-star forest, fitted with latest Wi-Fi and beds and so on and so forth. And he could have done that. He's the Supreme Personality of God, can't he do that? But no, they were suffering in the forest. Krishna came to visit him. And every time Krishna came, he said, you are our Lord. There is a reason why we are suffering. And then Krishna would give them solace and comfort. So there is no reason. If Krishna, he might not be reciprocating with your service to the extent or to the desire you want, but he is the most sentient of all beings. A person has a pet, and it could be a dog or a cat, and if that master loves that dog or a cat, The cat doesn't it respond? The cat or the dog doesn't it respond? A sentient, ignorant creature like dog can respond to the service done by the master. The most sentient, the most kindest of all personalities, Krishna, can't he render or can't he respond or reciprocate with your devotional service? He says, I am the father, I am the mother. Krishna will respond. So let's not give up hope. And in fact, he says, apichet sudurachara verse is there. So even if you fall down perchance, one should never give up hope, because Krishna says that if you have apichet suduracharo bhajete mam ananya bhak, if you are not thinking of anybody else except than me, then Krishna is saying that he's a sadhu and I'll take care of him. I'm sorry. Sometimes I have to get into stories. Otherwise, there is a danger, every danger, I will fall asleep. What else? Also in the last paragraph, so let's go to this is where my dilemma comes. You should forgive me. We can read all the 5 chapters in the class, but we will end up taking more classes. But if you read, then we can have more discussions. If I go from jump to one paragraph to another paragraph, or third or last, sometimes if you haven't read, you will feel that I am skipping. Yes or yes? There we go. See, honest Brahmana. But if you read, then you'll at least have some questions. So I have this request. I can do either ways. We can repeat this class and we can read the whole thing in the next class. You can tell me whether that would make better reading or experience, or whether this is better. You have to give me advice, or you have to guide me on that. I'll help accordingly. Okay, what time do we have now? 2:10? Or is it, we fix the watch, right? It's 2:10. Okay, then let's do it. Let's read the whole chapter, the pure devotional service, and then we can take some questions. At least one person will be happy. At least. I said at least. Okay, we start from, who didn't get a chance to, you can start from there. You got the chance to read. Ankurji, you didn't get a chance to read. You can read the first paragraph and you can give the mic to him, and then you can go on like that. And then one paragraph each, and then we'll stop whenever we need to. Somebody can raise hands.
All of the previous instructions imparted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his broad statements can be summarized thus. As long as one is materially inclined or desirous of merging into the spiritual effulgence, one cannot enter into the realm of pure devotional service. Next, Rupa Goswami states that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations, and that it is not limited to any particular country, class, society, or circumstance. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is transcendental and has no cause. Devotional service is executed without any hope for gain, and it cannot be checked by any material circumstances. It is open for all without any distinction, and it is the constitutional occupation of the living entities.
Thank you.
In the Middle Age, after disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claimed to be descendants of Nityananda, calling themselves the Goswamis caste. They further claimed that the practice and spreading of devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which was known as Nityananda Vamsya. In this way, they excited their artificial power for some time until Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, the powerful Acharya of Gaunja Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides that, anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already at the status of being a high-class Brahmana. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura's struggle for this movement has come out successful.
Okay.
It is on the basis of his position that anyone can now become a Gaudiya Vaishnava from any part of the world or any part of the universe. Anyone who is a pure Vaishnava is situated transcendently, and therefore the highest qualification in the material world, namely to be in the mode of goodness, has already been achieved by such a person. Our Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world is based on above mentioned proposition of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, our spiritual master. On his authority, we are claiming member from all society of Western country. The so-called Brahmanas claim that one who is not born into the Brahmana family cannot receive the sacred thread and cannot become a high-grade Vaishnava. But we do not accept such a theory because it is not supported by Rupa Goswami nor by the strength of various scriptures.
So, on that note, I always have one point. My father, he's a general surgeon. He's a good doctor. He performs operations. He's a good general surgeon. And Tejas there, he has to perform some appendicectomy. Never he have to do it, but assume he have to do it. And then I approach him and he says, "Oh, Tejas, you know what? I'll do appendicectomy on you." "What?" "Yeah." "Oh, do you know how to do it?" "Not so much, but my father is a good doctor, so I'm his son. So I'll do it." He will say, "I don't know about my appendicectomy, but you need to visit a psychiatrist." So it's the same thing, right? If just an ordinary material talent, with all due respect to all the doctors, it's the same thing like engineering, so no big issue there. It needs so much of study and so much of learning and so much of... Imagine that you go a software engineer job, you have like so many rounds of interviews and you have so much of background check and so much screening. You know, people might think you are applying for some President of United States post or something like that, where they don't have anything like that when they have to do that kind of work. But anyway, let's not get into that kind of talk right now. It's depressing. In any case, but so for a simple job to code requires so much of education and expertise on your part and so much of screening on the person who's employing you. How can one think that just by being born in a particular family, you automatically inherit the qualities of that? It's just not practical or not possible. Right? Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead. Yes, Yashoda Kripa Prabhu, you have a question.
In the above paragraph, there's a brief mention of the after the disappearance of Nityananda Prabhu and appearance of Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj, in between the Goswami family appeared. So there was a gap of 350 years approximately in between, and there were like 6 or 7 Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava Guru Parampara in between. Does it mean that Parampara belonged to that so-called Goswami family that claimed inheritance after Nityananda Prabhu's disappearance, or how are they related?
So, the descendants of Lord Nityananda were made temple presidents and Mathadipatis in different temples in Vrindavan. Their sons and their sons and their sons in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation, they somehow got this false idea that we only are capable. We only are capable of giving or continuing that line or that disciplic succession because we are born in that particular family. So that's where the problem came. Because when you identify yourself solely on the basis of birth, with no qualifications, then it became a problem. And they kind of artificially said, no, only we can do it. You cannot do prachar. Or you cannot give diksha, for example. Like that.
So, does it mean that the parampara that we are following today has been running in parallel to what they have been claiming separately? And it may be still running in parallel in different matha and everything separate?
It's possible. See, the thing is, when a spiritual... See, right now, why Nityananda Prabhu, even Srila Prabhupada, when he left, there are so many disciples. They have their own branches. They have their own kind of things that are going on. So it is perfectly natural for this to happen. But what imagine the problem will come that only one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who is a spiritual master, says that only me, not you, because I have that particular line. Then it becomes a problem. Okay, please go ahead. Okay, how is everybody doing? Do you want a break for 5 minutes, or everybody is good? Okay, excellent.
Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions herein that every man has the birthright to accept devotional service and to become Krishna conscious. He has given many evidences from many scriptures, and he has especially quoted one passage from Padma Purana wherein the sage Vasishtha tells King Dilipa, "My dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magha, December to January." There is more evidence in Skanda Purana in the Kashi Khanda portion, where it is said, in the country known as Mayuradvaja, the lower caste people who are considered less than Shudras are also initiated in the Vaishnava cult of devotional service. And when they are properly dressed with tilaka on their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikunta. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmanas.
Good.
Thus, a Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmana. This idea is also supported by Sanatana Goswami in his book Haribhakti Vilasa, which is the Vaishnava guide. Therein, he has clearly stated that any person who is properly initiated into Vaishnava cult certainly becomes a Brahmana, as much as the metal known kamsa, bell metal, is turned into gold by mixture of mercury. A bona fide spiritual master, under the guidance of authorities, can turn anyone into Vaishnava cult, so that naturally he may come to the topmost position of a Brahmana.
Thank you. You didn't get a chance to read, please, and then you can go back.
Srila Rupa Goswami warns, however, that if a person is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he should not think that simply by the acceptance of such initiation, his business is then finished. One still has to follow the rules and regulations very carefully. If after accepting that spiritual master and being initiated, one does not follow the rules and regulations of devotional services, then he is again fallen. One must be very vigilant to remember that he is the part and parcel of the transcendental body of Krishna, and that it is his duty as part and parcel to give service to the whole, or Krishna. If we do not render service to Krishna, then again we fall down. In other words, simply becoming initiated does not elevate one to the position of a high-class Brahmana. One also has to discharge the duties and follow the regulative principles very rigidly.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes.
Prabhuji, is there any difference between initiated devotees making offenses rather than regular devotees, regular people?
I mean, what is the difference between initiated devotees making an offense versus those who are not initiated?
Yes.
Not much. I mean, the idea that if you are initiated, when you talk of offense, it's a very broad term, right?
If they don't follow the rules and regulations, like if they fallen back, like meat eating or any other rule and regulation, well, they are initiated and they are wearing tulasi beads and everything they do, right? I mean, they.
So, obviously, those who are initiated have kind of become more serious in following these rules and regulations. And the spiritual master is liable, and he can get some reactions if there are some deliberate offenses on the part of the disciple. But ideally, everybody will have to come on that same platform sooner than later if they have to seek initiation. So, but those who are not initiated, at least it's not as directed towards a guru because they are not initiated yet. And those who have taken initiation have to be a little more careful. Is that helpful? Yeah. But having said that, offense is an offense in terms of for the others. If you commit a serious offense against a pure devotee, whether you are initiated or uninitiated, that is still an offense, right? Thank you. Yes.
Sri Rupa Goswami also says that if one is regularly discharging devotional service, there will be no question of a fall down. But even if circumstantially there is some fall down, the Vaishnava need have nothing to do with the prayaschitta, the ritualistic ceremony for purification. If someone falls down from the principles of devotional service, he need not take to the prayaschitta performances for reformation. He simply has to execute the rules and regulations for discharging devotional service, and this is sufficient for his reinstatement. This is the mystery of the Vaishnava devotional cult.
So, the circumstantial fall down can be either circumstantial, as in, in the heat of movement, you, for example, offend someone, or something like that happened, or you ate something that you shouldn't eat because you are unaware of it, or something to that effect. That's one circumstantial, but the other thing can be deeply ingrained, that we have conditioned nature, and sometimes we have our own character that can not be conducive to devotional service. For example, if one is prone to anger and harshness, this is your nature. Later you may realize. So, you should continue in devotional service, and if the person to whom you have offended, you might, because it's your nature, you can, it will take some time. Devotional service might not happen like I chant one round of Mahamantra and my anger is gone forever. Or you don't question why didn't it go forever, I just chanted. So we do that, and the person who's the victim of that anger also, should kind of be detached from that fact, because more often than not, in anger, a person might say things that I am not worthy of. For example, I might be called useless if somebody is angry with me. That doesn't mean I am useless, and that is the person's own projection of his anger on me, which I should not take, or which I should not accept. But in any case, these are some things that we can, it's just, there can be like habituated fall down, or there can be circumstantial fall down. But either ways, Krishna, if one sticks to devotional service, then over a period of time it purifies. Is that helpful? Yes, Prabhuji. Anybody online? I have questions. Did anybody ask a question?
What's the difference between a sin and an offense?
What is the difference between a sin and an offense? sin is mainly used to describe acts against devotional principles. And offense is mainly the imperfections in executing our devotional service. Because, for example, if we don't offer first class food to Krishna, we offer like really not, it's an offense actually. But it could be because of some, it's an imperfection, but it was not meant. Sin is little more deliberate. And it born of a tendency that God is there, but okay, I can break principles. I don't believe it. It's more like that. Offense is more, yes, I believe it, but I'm not perfect. Yes.
A question online. From where can we buy Waves of Devotion?
Excellent question. So, if devotees want, we can order copies for some discount. Usually that's what we've been getting at. So I can ask someone to do that. I would recommend that you get a copy. And it is helpful. Because Nectar of Devotion can be sometimes really terse, condensed, and not cohesive. But there is a pattern, but we cannot see it like in Bhagavad Gita. So, or you know what? Why don't you just order it online from Amazon or some other store instead of waiting for us? Maybe it's a good idea this time to go for it. You'll save a few dollars, but yeah. I don't know if I have a soft copy or even I'm allowed to distribute a soft copy, but if there is, then I'll let you know. PDF copy is there online? Okay. All right. It might not be it will be more or less the same as book, but there could be some differences. But you can use that also if you want to. If there is online, then you can use that. Or you cannot use that, I don't know, based on the copyrights. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
So, going back to the previous paragraph, where it is being said that you can use mercury and bell metal to convert into gold. That was a belief system, I believe, at that point of time. Was he actually just using that to make a point?
Actually, in the previous ages, there were alchemists. There was something called Chintamani stone that you touch that stone to the iron, it will become gold. So it was there. And maybe the bell metal, what we think, and the mercury of what we think now could be a little different that time. And that there were some ways that you could do it that we don't know. The thing I am thinking is, those days they had mantras to transform stuff. Try to imagine, in Mahabharata war, the weapons were not like, airlifted from U-Haul or dropped by helicopters. They had the sound, the mantras, they had to utter mantras. Just take a simple arrow and then imbue that arrow with the power of this mantra. That arrow would become celestial. Transform into celestial arrow. So my understanding is there is something like that. You just didn't have a gross chemical reaction. Otherwise, Tejas, wouldn't it be happy? Get some mercury, get some bell metal, mix them up, get gold. Why do you even have to work for anybody?
Exactly. I had one more question here. Why in this paragraph he's using mystery of the Vaishnava cult? What's the mystery here?
So, oftentimes, the progress in other paths is very difficult. Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter, when Krishna says, you have to do so many things, you have to select a place neither too high nor too low, you have to strict celibacy, you have to perform this, stare at the tip of your nose, so on and so forth. And Arjuna asks this question, what happens to the yogi who falls down? He's neither here nor there. But the mystery here is that even if you fall down, you don't become ineligible. You just keep doing what you're doing. Is that helpful? Yeah. Right. Or you start back from zero. Just keep continue what you're doing. But having said that, my humble request is that, if there are some problems that needs to be addressed, then having a mentor is always better. That, if you keep it in the heart and you think that it'll work, but later you find yourself really, struggling with a particular problem, then you might lose faith. So it's better to also have mentors, to whom, trusted people to whom you can reveal your heart and, get their opinion also. That's somewhat of a help. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, next. After that, Shuka Kamat Mataji then.
Practically, there are 3 processes for elevating one to the platform of spiritual consciousness. These processes are called karma, jnana, and bhakti. Ritualistic performances are in the field of karma. Speculative processes are in the field of jnana. One who has taken to bhakti, the devotional service of the Lord, need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. It has been already explained that pure devotional service is without any tinge of karma or jnana. Bhakti should have no tinge of philosophical speculation or ritualistic performances.
Thank you.
Sorry. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami gives evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam 11 Canto 21st chapter verse 2, in which Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, the distinction between qualification and disqualification may be made in this way. Persons who are already elevated in discharging bhakti seva will never again take shelter of the process of karma kanda or philosophical speculation. If one sticks to bhakti seva and is conducted by regulative principle given by authorities and acharya, that is the best qualification.
Thank you.
This statement is supported in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 5th chapter, verse 17, wherein Sri Narada Muni advises Vyasadeva thus: even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hari Krishna, there will be no fault on his part, and in all circumstances his position is secure. Even if, after some bad association, he falls down while executing devotional service, or he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he is not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in Varna and Ashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. The purport is that all conditioned souls who are engaged very frantically in activities for sense gratification, without knowing that this process will never help them to get out of material contamination, are awarded only with the repeated births and deaths.
Thank you. So do you want to read the whole chapter? Or because we do have 6th and 7th is fine. At least we can cover 6th and 7th in a short way. Let's go ahead. Let's read the whole chapter. At least we'll get a flavor.
In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated by Rishabdev to his sons, persons engaged in fruitive activities are repeatedly accepting birth and death, and until they develop a loving feeling for Vasudev, there will be no question of getting out from these stringent laws of material nature. As such, any person who is very seriously engaged in his occupational duties in the varnas and ashramas, and who does not develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, should be understood to be simply spoiling his human form of life.
Thank you.
This is confirmed also in the 11th canton of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter, verse 32, in which the Lord says to Yodha, "My dear Yodha, any person who takes shelter..." Uddhava, sorry. "Any person who takes shelter of me in complete surrender and follows my instruction, give up on all occasional duties, is to be considered the first-class man." In this statement of Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood that people who are generally attracted to philanthropy, essential moral and altruistic political and social welfare activity may be considered nice men only in the calculation of material world. From Srimad Bhagavad Gita and other authentic Vedic spirituals, we learn further that if the person simply acts in Krishna consciousness and disagrees devotional service, he is considered to be a fair better situated than all of those persons engaged in philosophical, ethical, moral, altruistic and social welfare activities.
So what do we learn from all these paragraphs? What do we learn? Devotional services better, even if you don't have Varnashrama credits, even if you don't have that kind of background check, it is better. In our society, we do have a big topic on Varnashrama. While it may be applicable to those who may not be interested in pure devotional service, but for those who are on the path of pure devotional service, then there is no need to perform Varna and Ashrama activities. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, so it says a devotee on the path of pure devotional service need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. And karma is a ritualistic activity which is done with a fruitive motive, in one sense. So the daily jobs that we do, 9 to 5, most of us, so that is a ritualistic activity in one sense, I see. And that is done with a fruitive desire to earn money, to have a comfortable living. Nothing wrong with a comfortable living, but I still have a feeling that it is more than the job that we do, it is more than the basic maintenance of the body. It goes beyond that. And it does interfere in our personal sadhana. I wish if I don't have to do this 8-hour job, but just 2-hour job, then remaining 6 hours I would like to devote in a different way. So thinking like that, I personally feel, and I want to get a confirmation, is that a correct feeling or not, that this kind of doing job is against pure devotional service principle. Hare Krishna.
Krishna says in the 3rd chapter that without doing one's duties or activities, one cannot maintain one's body. Since body is a vehicle for performing pure devotional service, to do activities to maintain the body in of itself is also pure devotional service. But each and every person who is doing the job has to ask himself or herself, am I over-endeavoring or am I doing it for basic maintenance? Is my goal of this job to maintain my body or to achieve career success at the cost of my sadhana? Nothing wrong in achieving career success. But if it comes at the cost of sadhana, then you might have to, that's a question that it's an individual question. If you are living, for example, the reason I say is, Bhagavatam says if you are a sannyasi, you know how much food you should carry wherever you go? The food that your belly can hold. That's it. You should not be taking any foodstuffs with you, thinking, where am I going to get the next meal? Or this is the insurance for my next meal. You shouldn't take sannyas if you have that fear or anxiety. But if you are a householder, you cannot apply that principle of a sannyasi. In fact, it's mentioned that you have to stock up on goods at least for 2 months. Because the nature of householder is such, you might have guests. If the guests come to your home for prasad, you say that we carry only whatever we can carry in our bellies. So thank you very much. I hope you have stuff in your belly too, so we are good. So it radically changes. So to the extent you maintain the body, that job is absolutely essential and is pure devotional service. Besides, the house is where the deities are, house is where children are. And you cannot, in the name of devotional service, again, a sannyasi might be able to live in a very austere situation, but to have that, imitate that in the household life, it's not the best of the solution. So it has to have a balance. And Krishna says in Bhagavatam in many places that a devotee of mine, he doesn't endeavor too much to maintain his livelihood. But given the very nature of Kali Yuga, given the nature of Silicon Valley, some endeavor is needed. In fact, why are we talking in 2019? Mahaprabhu once visited the house of Srivas Thakur. And then Srivas Thakur had a large family, and he had an extended family, and he had servants. And then once Mahaprabhu asked Srivas, I don't see you going anywhere for work. You are at home most of the time. How do you maintain yourself? You have a large family. And 500 years ago, he said, unless you run around, hustle bustles, and you will never get stuff. That was 500 years ago. In Kali Yuga, in Silicon Valley right now, it's a whole other cup of herbal tea. And Srivas Thakur said, he clapped his hands thrice. 1, 2, 3. And then Mahaprabhu said, what do you mean clapping your hands 1, 2, 3? And then he said, well, I've taken a vow, if thrice I don't get my meals, or if it is not provided, then I'll end my life in Ganges. And Mahaprabhu gave that vow that even Lakshmi Devi perchance has to go begging. You will not fall short of the necessities in your house. So if you are on that platform of Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, then please don't work. But if you are not there, please work. I have seen, often the mind plays this trick. I thought about it. The mind plays this trick that have I more time, then I can perform a lot of devotional service and be a full-time thing. But when you actually have time, are you fully utilizing it in service of Krishna? And I frankly admit I don't. So it's better I say to Krishna, you know what, you're teaching me a lesson by making me humble, by kind of going to, because every second I freely confess, every second is something I'm not at there. So it's better, and then the fear is there if I don't. The other thing you can test for yourself, 3 months, I don't go to work. Then you'll see that if there is a gnawing fear, how will I maintain myself, then better go. Because a devotee is reached, exalted soul has reached such a stage, he has such complete faith in Krishna that Krishna will protect me no matter what, and he's ready to accept that. And modern time, it's so impossible. If you are a husband, your wife will, if you say that, let's depend on Krishna and let's see the reactions, or vice versa, or both, in the modern context. I'm not saying one way or other. Is that helpful? Yes. Thank you. Yes, Sukha Kamat Mataji.
Is it difficult to take sannyasi? Compare in the Western world, in material world, versus like in India, because the way how it's designed over here, it seems like it is more difficult to take sannyasi.
Well, even 50 years ago, it was not that difficult in India. But even in India, it's very difficult to be a sannyasi these days. It's not that easy. It's slightly easier in terms of the West, but the challenges still remain. Srila Prabhupada, when he came to West, he was sannyasi. He had no support. He had no money. He had no place to live. His health was not in the best of the situation. He had no medical insurance probably when he came, probably landed. Seriously. But he has such complete faith in Krishna that far from being victimized by the Western world, he actually was able to convert so many people into Krishna's devotees. So it's more very irrespective of the place, it is my own individual conviction and my complete faith in Krishna that can save wherever I am. And if you are on that level, Narayana parasarve nakutaschana bibhyati swargapavarga narakeshu tulyartha api darshinaha. If those who are on that Narayana Parayana, whether you put them in heaven or hell or any liberated state, for them it is the same. So it's more of my own individual faith in Krishna. But having said that, I agree with your point that it's much more easier in India because you don't have to worry about insurance and so on and so forth.
Well, I mean, in terms of begging alms, you go from each household and
in India,
it seems disappearing,
Well, I grew up in India in a reasonably safe neighborhood, but still I didn't see any sannyasis coming to the house. Mainly I saw beggars. They were professional beggars that would come to the house to beg because that was their profession. They didn't take sannyas. Sannyasi is a very painstaking situation. If you become sannyasi, to go beg every single day, to ask once a favor from someone is, your false ego kind of says, no, why should I ask? But every single day to depend on everything on somebody and to enlighten them, it's a very painstaking situation. But I didn't see many sannyasis come, even in India per se. You had some. Is that okay, Sukamataji? Kind of, I see your point, but even the Vedic culture, for those who didn't grow up in India, at least in our generation, we can see that it was fast disappearing. India is becoming so modernized these days. And probably even if a sannyasi goes to an average Indian youth, they will say, hey, get away from you. I've seen so many people like you.
Well, part of it has to do with the rule and regulation that the government has set up and make it difficult for sannyasis to do so,
Maybe. Actually, I always remember the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's passing from Orissa to Bengal, where he had to pay toll. I don't know if anybody remembers that pastime, that he had to actually pay toll to cross from one state to another. And the toll man said that he looks at Mahaprabhu and he says, okay, for you, because Mahaprabhu didn't have any money, neither did his followers. And then Mahaprabhu, he says, okay, go, you pass it, but I will not allow your followers to pass through to the other side without paying some toll. I was thinking, Mahaprabhu's time also, they had all this kind of regulations. It was not like a perfect ideal situation. But now situation is different in India. You will be surprised that if you are a sannyasi and you travel in a train without a ticket, you will be punished. The ticket collector will not say, oh, you are a sannyasi Maharaj, that's okay. Or a bus. Sannyasi means you have to travel. And travel means you have to buy. And you are not allowed to board any train in India or any plane in India just because you are a sannyasi. So it's not as idealistically Vedic as you think it is in India these days. It is still, it's a lot more, hurdles are there in place. I don't know how much time you spent in India or, what facet of India you saw, but on an ordinary level, it's different.
It's how I grow up and I seen, from my childhood, my ancestor faith. They begging in front of each household, and they still do.
That's nice, but in India, unfortunately, it's taken over by professional beggars. In fact, they have sullied the good name of sannyasis, seriously. Because People have realized that that's their profession. They have thousands of dollars in the bank. They deposit in the bank. Like you earn your money, put it in the bank. They beg, they go put their money in the bank. And then there is exploitation. Kids are often exploited to beg on the streets. So it's a whole other dark side of the noble profession of begging that happens in India. So anyway, there are genuinely people who are forced to do that. Don't get me wrong, but the majority is not forced to, but choose to. Yes, Yashoda Kripa. Oh, you had, okay. She and then, okay, somebody online.
I don't know if this helps or is related at all, but in the 18th chapter, the second verse, when Arjuna asks, or the first verse, he asks, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation and of renounced order of life. And then Krishna says, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas. So does that technically mean you can be a sannyasi without actually being a sannyasi?
Yeah. Actually, sannyas doesn't mean, Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the purports, sannyasi doesn't mean you take on the saffron robes and a danda. Internally, you have to have that determination to be a sannyasi and that renunciation. Internally, you cultivate first and externally let it manifest and not the other way around. So, yeah. But having said that, internally you are a sannyasi, externally you are a householder, then you better balance it out. Okay. We talked about the guest and the belly and the feeling, so on and so forth. So, other questions? Okay.
Said a quick comment on Sukha Mataji's question regarding sannyasis and the relationship with begging. So, the way we see begging has been, as you rightly mentioned, it has been significantly influenced by the professional beggars. So it has led to, as far as I have seen, has led to the change in the modus operandi. Basically, the way the begging is done now, or the real begging for the sannyasis is done, has now changed. Instead of going door to door, which is no longer appreciated, it has basically transformed to things like going to universities or corporate houses, doing some kirtan programs or preaching activities like this, and then when the corporate houses and the rich people, they wish at an appropriate time, they sponsor certain, let's say, 1,000 books or 2 months of prasadam. There are some programs in ISKCON temples all over India where people are sponsoring Akshay Patra, and so many Annapurna and so many programs are there where the prasadam is sponsored. So that the way of begging has changed. Instead of like going door to door, it has more become formalized and structured versus before. That's what I see it now.
Thank you. But the underlying principle for a sannyas in all places and in all circumstances is implicit faith in Krishna. It doesn't matter whether it's corporate household or whether it is door-to-door begging. Now that it doesn't mean the modern sannyasi shouldn't beg door-to-door. In fact, we don't go door-to-door distributing books. So the point is that if we have implicit faith in Krishna and Krishna will always protect me no matter what, then you are ready to be a sannyasi. Otherwise, what happens if the economy crashes and I'm a sannyasi? The scriptural praman to what I say is Shukdev Goswami in the 2nd canto. He says, why are the exalted souls begging at the doors of rich men, praising them for money? Is the caves not stop giving shelter? Are the rivers not giving water? Are there no torn clothes on the roadside? And so on and so forth. It was kind of went like that. Okay, we have the skit going to be ready in next couple of minutes. So before I go, yes, Prabhuji. SKP Prabhu, can I take few questions? Okay, don't curse me. Brahmana's curses are really powerful.
Very good. So, Prabhu, in Kali Yuga, out of the 5 things, one of the things in Kali Yuga is sannyas is correct. Sannyas is forbidden, and in the context we are discussing, I mean, is this one of the reason why it is forbidden in the sense? I mean, it should not become a profession. Is that the reason why it is forbidden?
So, my exalted God brother and my revered mentor, His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, when he took sannyas, he gave a big talk on that. Now, what is mentioned as sannyas is karma sannyas, means you just don't give up your duty. But as a sannyasi to preach the cult of bhakti, then you can still allow it. Otherwise, Mahaprabhu wouldn't take sannyas. He being the Supreme Lord himself, why would he set a bad example or break the rules of his own injunctions in terms of taking sannyas? So, to spread pure bhakti, it is okay to take sannyas, like Prabhupada did, and so on and so forth.
And while doing that, you have to completely depend on Krishna.
Correct. Yes.
You plan your next 2 months and all that, you cannot do that.
I mean, he has 2 million followers on Twitter, he has saffron robes, maybe I should try like that. A stick will give me 3 million followers. And thus, we can get $10 per person and we can do the math. Don't be a sannyasi. That is business thinking, not sannyasi thinking. So the 5th chapter is 64 items of devotional service. I'm going to quiz you next time. So please read and come. 6th and 7th. Don't worry, the marks won't be counted to the exam. And I hope to see you all. Don't be scared. It's like we use the facility of online and I preach to the big wall right there. Yes, there is homework, and then I will talk to Steve. We should have some homework in place. We need homework. Yeah, there will be homework.
Prabhuji, one more question in the online. Do we need to read entire book of Waves of Devotion or some chapters from that?
Well, how many chapters are we reading for the Bhakti Shastri exam?
9.
And so, the Waves of Devotion is optional. Please don't think that things will come from exam. It will help you understand the subject matter better, but the questions will be purely from Nectar of Devotion. It's only for your own clearing, and I highly recommend it if you want to take the Waves of Devotion. Is that helpful? I am extremely grateful to all of you that you took your time and you are here. And then I'll see you 2 weeks from today. Thank you so very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha.